Hi, it's Jane Mason here from Virtuous Bread, and today is day 5 from the sourdough start along. So I'm glad that you've made it this far. I'm glad that you want to make a sourdough starter, either because you can't find yeast at the moment or because it's something you've always wanted to do. Now, if you remember, over the past 5 days, we've been putting flour and water together in a bowl, well, 2 bowls really, because we've been making 1 rye and 1 wheat. Today, in this video, we're going to use the rye starter. So if you didn't make a rye starter and you're not interested in rye bread, turn me off and you can come back and watch the video where we use the wheat starter. So see you all wheat people, and rye people, you're with me. So what we're going to do today is we're going to use that baby starter that you have that's all frothy and lovely, and we are going to do a very basic 100% rye loaf. And I've already got my ingredients mixed here in the bowl so that you didn't have to watch me measuring, but it's very simple. All you do is you measure 160 grams of your new baby starter, 240 grams of rye flour, 140 grams of water, and 6 grams or a big teaspoon of salt. Do use salt, otherwise bread tastes terrible. Cut down in salt in other parts of your diet, but do use salt in your bread. So once you get that all measured into your bowl, and the link to the recipe is attached to this video, you just stir it all together, okay? Stir it all together, and if you've ever seen any of my other rye videos, this is no different. Rye has a bit of a curious texture. It's sort of slimy and sticky at the same time, and it absorbs a lot of water. Now, you want your rye dough to be very soft when you touch it. You don't want it to feel grainy or sandy, and you don't want it to be stiff. So here's my bowl here, and there's the rye. Now when I push it, it's actually quite difficult to get my finger through it. It doesn't feel soft, it's pretty stiff. So I'm just gonna add a tiny bit more water, like a blob, a little blurch, a little like that much more. And then I'm going to take, in this case I'm just using a spatula because it's probably what you have at home, that or a spoon, and I'm going to work that water into my dough. Because if the rye dough is too dry, you're going to get super heavy, very claggy bread, which is what people don't like. It's kind of the reputation of rye, but it doesn't need to be that way. It can be very, very light. So I'm getting my ingredients. Remember, it's 160 grams of starter, 240 of rye flour, 140 of water, and 6 grams of salt. And now, I don't know if you can see that, but it's more glossy. There's a shine on it now from the extra water. And when I push it, it's soft. It doesn't feel sandy. It feels very smooth on my fingers. That's what you're going for. Now, what you want to do is you want to have, when you're making rye, a bowl of water handy. And that's because in order to shape this blob in the bowl, to put it in the tin, you need to have really wet hands or it's going to stick to you and be impossible to shape. So wet your hands, thoroughly soaking wet, like soaking, dripping wet, and just pick up that. I'm going to take all the bits and pieces out of the bowl. Pick up this, okay? And now what I'm going to do is just pass it from hand to hand. I'm kind of eyeballing my tin over there and trying to get this little oblong to be roughly the shape of the tin. Can you see the palm print in there? You probably can't. It's not great lighting, but there is a palm print in there, and that's because it's nice and soft. If you're sticking to it at all, wet your hand, okay, and just continue to smooth it like this. Don't squash it particularly, just smooth it down. Pick up the tin and insert it in the tin. Now, it's so funny because I'm so used to shaping from my tins in my kitchen. I didn't do a brilliant job of shaping it. See how it's a little bit short there? Don't worry about it, okay? Don't squash it. Don't try and make it fill the tin. Just leave it. This rye will settle in the tin and it will rise and find its own level. When it's risen and ready for the oven, it will literally have filled the whole tin, and it'll have little holes on the top of it where the air has burst through. The carbon dioxide from the yeast has burst through the top. With the sourdough, it always takes a little bit longer, and at room temperature, it takes about 5 hours. Now, you want to cover it, and I use a shower hat because a shower hat keeps it airtight, and you want to lift up the top of the shower hat because that gives it room to rise without it sticking to anything. You can also insert it into a plastic bag and kind of blow it up and make a balloon around the loaf and tie it with a twist tie. But you don't want the surface of the dough touching whatever's covering it. And because it's a 5-hour rise, you want to make sure it's pretty airtight. So I will cover this now, and in about 5 hours, it'll be ready for the oven. If your kitchen's particularly cold, you can do what you did to make the starter. Turn on your oven light, cover up the bread, the dough, put it in the oven, close the oven, and leave it in there. And that will make a nice warm place for it to rise. Check it after 3 hours, see how it's going. Sometimes it looks like nothing is happening, and then all of a sudden it's up at the top. So check it, keep checking it, but roughly 5 hours at room temperature, and it'll be ready for the oven. You bake this bread at 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 230 degrees Celsius for the first 10 minutes or so. You can then reduce the temperature to 400 and 200 and bake for a further 30. All of that will be in the recipe, and I wish you joy, and I'd love to see how your loaves work out. So bye until the next time, and we are going to continue with this. Now, look, super quickly, what you want to do with your leftover starter is you just want to, sorry about this is getting a bit lengthy, take either a glass jar or a Tupperware, as long as it's airtight, okay? Pour your extra starter into your container, okay? Close it and put it in the fridge, okay? It will live in the fridge pretty much indefinitely, but we will be making more videos on what you need to do when you're using your starter from the fridge. But pop it in the fridge, don't worry about it, don't feed it, don't fuss over it. When you're ready to use it again, take it out, and we'll have a video about that. So there you go. That's it. It's that easy. You now have a starter you can live with forever and leave to your grandchildren. Just make sure it stays in the fridge. It'll go to sleep, and it'll be ready when you are. Bye for now.